Okay, hello and welcome to the video. And this video is entitled that voting for Democrats is like voting for Nazis and yet denying that Nazis actually exist. Uh, did you know that during the World War II and the events leading up to World War II, the Nazis murdered either in warfare or through genocide a total of around 50 million people. Um, about 6 million of that was Jews, and another 3 million of that was gypsies that we famously call the Holocaust. But people don't realize that the Nazis actually murdered around 50 million people during the entire chain of events. Did you know that the United States, if you count all of the abortions that women in the United States have committed since the original Roe versus Wade ruling, they have committed over 120 million abortions? They admit to around 70 million, but that statistic's already about 20 years old. All right. And they've been killing a lot more in recent years than they have in previous years. And Democrats deny that a human fetus is a human. Well, what species is it? It's human. Well, by the classical definition of murder, it's murder to commit an abortion, regardless of what the 7 evil Democrat judges said in that Supreme Court ruling. They should have been, the judges back then should have been impeached and put on trial, just like the Nuremberg trials of the Nazis, because they promoted the entire civilization to go off the cliff of abortion. We've now murdered a third of our entire population through abortion since then. And the women just want to murder more babies. You know, if you don't want a baby, don't have sex, and sure as hell don't get married. You can go get your tubes tied ahead of time instead of murdering a baby. It's not the baby's fault that you're an evil bitch, that you're lazy, that you're just flat out hateful and evil to murder your own child. It's not the baby's fault, it's your fault. And while I'm on this, around 2/3 of the Democrat Party is now atheists that totally deny that any God exists. You're going to find out that there's a real God one day, I assure you. As sure as I'm sitting here talking to you, you are going to find out that there's a real God one day, and you're going to find out that abortion is murder, and you're going to bust hell wide open. All of you. Taxes. How much tax does somebody owe? All right. How much tax do Americans owe when some people that are in upper middle class to lower upper class, if you want to look at it that way, dividing into 9 classes instead of three, uh, are paying as much as 60% of their income in total taxes, because you've got federal income tax, state income tax, in some cases city income tax, and then you've got sales tax, which is now 14 cents on the dollar in town. All right. 14 cents on a dollar in sales tax that everybody pays, regardless of income level. Do you know that that's more tax than the founding fathers paid in total to Great Britain before the Revolutionary War? That 14 cents is already more than they were willing to pay. And some people in the United States are paying 60% income tax. The ones that are in the 300 to 400 to $500,000 a year income range. My brother is probably paying about 50%, and so is my sister by the time you count everything. My brother was a boilermaker and supervisor for a construction company that does all these plant works. And then he quit doing that and did something that I'm not going to mention that's not illegal, but it's a proprietary and family secret, and made just as much money. He makes about $200,000 a year working for himself, doing this, which started out as a side gig. It doesn't involve any kind of technology or anything. As a matter of fact, it uses about 100-year-old technology. My sister is a nurse educator and runs all the mental health hospitals in Louisiana. Uh, but so they pay a hell of a lot of tax. Matter of fact, I've seen one of their tax returns one year when both she made over 100K and her husband made over 100K that year. And it's obscene how much tax they ended up paying. They pay more in tax than the average person in the United States makes in a year. And Democrats want to raise more taxes on them. How much of their money should they pay? How much of my money should I pay? It's slavery. All right. How high of a tax rate are you willing to pay before you realize that you are a slave to the Democrat Party? When you're paying 60% income tax altogether, before you even get to stuff like inspection stickers and licensing and registrations for your automobiles and all these other taxes that you have to pay for stuff, fees. If you got to have a MODAD system installed for your sewer, you got to pay a licensing fee for that, which is just another tax. You got to pay a permit fee to build a house, which is a tax. You got to pay property tax on the land you already own. It's slavery. But you fools keep voting for Democrats over and over again because they promise you a free ride, and yet you're a slave. You're an absolute slave. Do you realize that the African slaves had a free wife and family? But the average American man can't even afford to have a family anymore because they're paying so much tax? That you're more of a slave than the Africans were. The only difference is we have a lot of technology, so we don't realize that we're slaves. But you're a slave when you're paying 40% tax off the top to the federal government, and 14% sales tax, and 5% state income tax, and 1.5 or 2% city income tax, and all these other taxes and licensing and registration fees on everything that you do. It's slavery. That's why the Republican Party is trying to reduce all that stuff. And then the Democrats are like, he's insane for lowering taxes. Wow, do you like giving 50% to 60% of your paycheck every year to the federal government and the state government? Do you actually like that? You think that's a good thing? Then it ends up in Nancy Pelosi's pocket instead of the people it's supposed to be going to. I mean, to hell with Democrats. To hell with you.